Good morning, I'm Libby Collins, and this is KTI Country Connection. We don't always want to talk about it, but racial and economic disparity has an impact on self-esteem, especially for young people. How do you address these social and emotional needs of students, which can have a lifelong effect? Well, joining us today is Laura Wichitich. She's Executive Director of Know Thyself, which does exactly that. And Laura, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks, Libby.
Now, what is the primary mission of Know Thyself?
Know Thyself works with middle school and high school students to teach them the soft skills that allow them to be successful and positive contributors to society. Soft skills is a really malleable term, and it involves a wide range of skills that fall into the social and emotional learning categories. So they're everything from handshakes and eye contact, so manners, etiquette kind of thing, to goal setting and anger management, stress management, all the things that stand in the background that allow someone to be successful.
Well, I understand that Know Thyself was originally founded really to teach manners and etiquette, wasn't it?
It was, yes. It was more strictly manners and etiquette curriculum originally, and it was founded almost 20 years ago by a woman named Stephanie Klurfeld, who is still very much involved in the organization, and it was started in this little school called Jackie Robinson Middle School, which unfortunately is no longer open. But she worked with the counselor there at the school to develop the curriculum. And they just had a small group, about 6 or 7 sixth grade girls, who have all gone on and do great things, by the way, one of which I was even on the board of our directors for a while, which was pretty cool. But since then, it has grown and expanded to include boys, and like I said as well, high school students. So like this past year, we had almost 450 kids in our curriculum.
So over 20 years, you've served thousands of young people.
Oh, yes, absolutely, if you add them all up, yeah.
Now, I started out by saying that obviously in a lot of areas, kids are at a disadvantage because they don't have the money that a lot of kids have out in the suburbs or in certain parts of the city. And that is probably made even worse by the fact if they are a racial minority, that there are a lot of things, there's just a lot of things going against them. And
Absolutely.
These are the kids primarily in the program.
Absolutely, yeah. And to be clear, the kinds of things that we teach are not unique or more at need in the urban setting, say, than the suburban setting or in the poor neighborhoods versus the rich neighborhoods. Ask anyone who's got a teenager. They'll tell you, wow, I hear this all the time. Wow, my kid could really use that curriculum. But just as you said, with all the other things stacked against an urban kid in their attempts to be successful in life, the last thing they need is if they happen to get to graduation from high school in a successful way, say they're senior at, North Division High School or something like that, and they want to go out into the world and they go to a job interview or an internship interview or something like that, and they don't handle themselves correctly. How tragic would that be? So we really want to be able to take that factor away, at least, so that they can feel comfortable and confident in a situation where they need to be.
And those of you who are in Know Thyself, the board members, the people who are really involved, you're all really high-powered executives.
Well, either executives or retired executives. We have a few that have been entrepreneurs themselves. Stephanie herself actually was. She ran her own accessories line in Chicago. She had her own place down there. And that's where it all began. She had her own self-esteem program for working women at the time. And that's what she modeled it on, actually, when she started the program. So, yeah, it's a good cross-section of people.
But what's interesting about that is you're giving of yourself to teach young people skills that in some cases you have refined over 20, 30, 40-year careers.
Yeah. And what's also very interesting is that, if anything, what we're teaching is more relevant and needed today than it was when it was started, more than ever before. I think because maybe parents aren't teaching it as much as they used to. Schools certainly never have, and nor do I really think they should. It's not, I don't think, should be part of their mission, but they're just, kids aren't getting it anymore.
Well, take a look just the TV shows, probably when you and I were growing up,
Yeah.
the ones that some of them were still in black and white,
Yeah.
and where the parents were Mr. So and So, and
Yes.
the kids would come to the door and they'd have shirts and ties to take girls on dates and things like
Right.
that. When was the last time you saw that, except for prom?
Well, and that's an interesting point too, because to my knowledge anyway, Know Thyself is unique within Milwaukee. There are quite a number of other programs that teach self-esteem, that teach anti-bullying, that teach the goal setting, but I don't know of any anyway that also do the old school stuff, the manners and the etiquette. And we even teach them audience etiquette. We take them to the Rep or to the art museum, teach them thank you notes, dining etiquette, where the fork goes and where the knife goes. And I've heard some people push back on that and they say, oh, come on, don't you think these kids maybe have a bit more important things to worry about than where the fork goes on the side of the plate? But I counter that by saying, if they're in, take that person who's graduated from North Division, and they're being taken out to lunch. First of all, they don't want to make a fool of themselves. And second of all, they're going to know that they're at a disadvantage if they don't know that stuff. They're going to feel uncomfortable or feel less powerful. And to know that gives them that comfort to allow them to be successful.
We're talking with Laura Wichitich. She's executive director of Know Thyself. Let's talk about the actual curriculum.
Okay.
How long a period of time does it last in the schools?
Well, it's very malleable because we have to work within what the school has on offer. So it could, in some schools it's only a semester long, some school it's a whole year. And so what we give them is an actual manual that gives them lesson plans and worksheets and assessments and so on and so forth. And the schools then take from that what they see as meets their particular needs within their school. There's actually two prongs to our curriculum. One is the strictly middle school, and one is a high school program, which takes a lot from the middle school curriculum but adds a huge arts component. Because by this point, kids are much more thoughtful, they're much more self-aware, they're much more aware of their surroundings. And so we try to bring that all in to connect them to their community. And that program is run by a professional photographer by the name of Paul Calhoun, and he's fabulous with the kids, has them write self-introspective essays and do murals, huge murals that they create together. And there's always a theme every year. This year happened to be on immigration. So kids met with and interviewed immigrants, both within their schools, so their classmates who were first generation immigrants, and also older people who came in and spoke with them. And then they created these murals, which actually two of them are hanging at the Jewish Museum, Milwaukee, right now. They're really cool.
Now, you started out by saying that a lot of what is taught in this curriculum are soft skills.
Mm-hmm.
How do you teach something like empathy?
That is a great question. The first thing we do probably is to get them to, I'll give you an example. I'll answer by way of an example. We bring in sometimes outside organizations that can reach the kids in a better way. You never know what's going to hit the kids, right? And so we brought in First Stage Theater. They have 2 character development, I think they call it, curriculum. One of them has to do with bullying specifically. And it's a 3-part program. They come in and they bring these great high energy, super engaging, well, they were gals for us, but I don't know, I'm sure there are men that work in the organization as well. And they get them to role play. And they'll take, one girl is supposed to be the one that's being bullied. And then the others are standing over there and they have them create a scene. And they, they say, okay, I want you to take away her cell phone, pretend to take away her cell phone and then laugh. And then they'll roll through the scene and then she says, freeze. And then she has them all talk about what everyone is thinking within that group. What do you think that bullied person is thinking? What do you think they're thinking? And so you get them to jump out of their skin a little bit and try to understand what other people are thinking. It's really awesome to watch.
And what sort of reaction do you get from the students after they've completed the course? And do they give you feedback as to how their lives have changed because of it?
Yeah, well, that's a fun thing because we have kept in touch with a lot of we teach this to both boys and girls, but unfortunately, we have a really hard time getting male facilitators for our curriculum, and we very much strive to have men teach the boys and women teach the girls. It's just, it's a better dynamic. So there are far more girls that have completed our program than boys. So if I refer to girls more often, that's why. Anyway, so we have kept in touch with a lot of girls. Like I said, one of them was even on the board of our directors for a while. All of them say, the ones we've kept in touch with, that it caught them at a time in their life when they realized that they should be more collected, more given them more self-confidence, broadened their horizons. For some of these kids, they've never been to the theater or they've never been to the museum or whatever. So even just that sort of opening the doors for them in that way has made them realize that they strive and do whatever they want to do.
Now, you mentioned facilitators. How do you find facilitators for the program?
Yeah, they all are already employed by the school. So they're usually the counselor or social worker within the school. If the school does not have one who has time within their schedule, we have a schools coordinator. Her name is Wida Williams, who will come in and bring the curriculum into the school. She is the one who was the Jackie Robinson Middle School counselor from 20 years ago. So she's supposedly retired, air quotation marks, but she's busier than ever. She is everywhere. She mentors new counselors. She's very much involved still within them. She's awesome. To see her at work with the girls is just incredible.
Well, over 20 years, I imagine the program has changed somewhat. As you said, it started out strictly manners and etiquette, but it's evolved into all of these other areas.
Right.
What do you see as the future for it?
It's actually really exciting right now because this year was the first year that we actually had a curriculum manual that we could hand to facilitators. Before that, it was largely in Wida Williams' head, all of these amazing things, and people that we had over many, many years. Now, because of that, what's on paper, we can expand to as many schools as we want and that we are able to fund. So like just last year, we added 3 new schools. So we were only in 3 middle schools 2 years ago. Now we're in 6. So we doubled already just because of that. We're also now getting solicited. It's one of those things that snowballs. The more people hear about it, the more people that want it. And as long as it can fit into the school day, which is a big if, but as long as it can, 9.9 times out of 10, principals say, I want that in my school. We also are in conversation right now with a community center, which would be brand new for us. It's on Fond du Lac Avenue, and they bring in 16 to 24-year-old kids after school. They actually do very much the same thing that we do. So a lot of soft skill training, anger management, goal setting, all that sort of thing. And so when they saw our curriculum, they said, oh my God, we would love to have you come in here and do this. So we're going to develop a pilot program for the summer and see how that works in that setting, because we've just never worked there before and anything like that before. And they're older kids than we're used to working with too. So we might have to, alter things a little bit here and there. But that could potentially be pretty cool too. So,
well, I know it's a program that you don't hear a lot about. It's called Know Thyself. If our listeners want to get more information about it or maybe help out in some ways, how can they reach you?
Yeah, we're on the web at knowthyselfproject.org, or you can even email me at info@knowthyselfproject.org.
Will you come back, Laura?
Sure.
Love to talk to you again and get some of those soft skills out there for our listeners and myself too. Laura Wichitich, who is Executive Director of Know Thyself. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Libby.